But let's just take the word soul itself. The word soul in Hebrew is neshama. Neshama. It comes right in the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, where it says that after the sixth day of creation, God took a clump of clay, of earth, from the ground, shaped it into what would become a body, and then he imbued it with his breath, with divine breath. So therefore, in Hebrew, the word for soul and the word for breath are actually the same word. They're just pronounced differently. Neshama is soul. Neshima means breath. So when we breathe, physically breathe, we inhale and exhale. It's exactly the same thing. As I mentioned, breath comes through our mouths, to our throats, into our lungs, fills up the lungs, which in turn gets oxygenated and then distributed through the blood into the body. And then we exhale the carbon dioxide and other elements that should be exhaled. And this process continues back and forth. As a matter of fact, it's called in the Kabbalistic literature a process from the book of Ezekiel of Rotzeh Veshuv, tension and resolution, like the contraction and expansion of the heart, the exhale and inhale of the breath. And that's the constant flow of energy, that you have the two poles, and that's how you create energy. There's a certain tension, but then there's a resolution. And if you have the perfect balance, like a cardiogram, it looks like a wave. In the breath, the same idea. We inhale, and then we exhale. We inhale and exhale. On a spiritual level, it's exactly the same thing. We all need to have a measure of angst, not anxiety, angst. Animal bliss and too much serenity creates complacency and therefore no motivation. But we also need to have resolution. So we reach for something greater than ourselves, and then we integrate it. Essentially, if you think of breathing, that's what we do when we breathe. So the soul is like a flame. Another analogy for it is a flame. A flame is constantly flickering. It's restless. So you need to feed that restlessness, to try to fight it by saying, I don't want to be restless, I just want to be a couch potato and do nothing. You're actually undermining your own very soul. So it's about respecting the mobility and the fluidity and the pulsating action of the soul's constant movement. And there is a way in a battle, because when you live in a material world, there is a certain tendency to be lazy, to get sedentary, and not to have that movement. And what you're happening to do is like taking something that is by nature thrives on movement and trying to force it into a box. Imagine taking a human being and locking them in a box. What would we feel like? Not just the claustrophobia, it's just completely unnatural to us to be trapped. It's movement. Look at young children. Again, the purest version of ourselves, the young children. And what do you see? You see constant movement. Take a child and try to hold them for too long. Yes, you need to cuddle them, you need to nurture them, hug them, embrace them. But a child by nature is constantly moving. And you don't want to stop that. Yes, you want to make sure they don't get into trouble. But you never want to stop that movement because that's natural to them, because their soul is active. What happens is, as we continue to get involved in the material world, materialism actually numbs us. It starts to freeze up, it starts to harden, not just our arteries, but also our movements. The flexibility, the free abandon, the imagination, the dreaming. It begins to stunt it, it begins to limit it. So as we get older, the spirit, which is so free and like a flame, is not becoming confined. I'm not in the mood. I've been disappointed. I've had experienced disappointments. I don't want to try anything new. What you're really doing is undermining the very fiery nature of the pulsating energy of your soul, of your breath. So it's really good to keep in mind that your soul is your breath, and your breath is actually constantly moving. Would any normal person consider it to stop breathing for a moment? No, it's necessary. It's the breath of life. And that is the soul. So understanding who you are, that you're not a body that happens to have an energy force called a soul. You're a soul that's traveling through a vehicle called the body, is the most important foundation of it all. So the truth is, anyone who's in touch with that doesn't really need meditation, because that is the meditation. They're constantly in a meditative state, in a state of mindfulness, a state of presence. The problem becomes, especially when the Western world over-industrialized and over-commercialized things, so human beings became frustrated. And that's why many people went off to the fields, to the meadows, to the mountains, to the east, the journey to the east, to try to find something a little peaceful. And people talk about, it was so calming for me just to walk through a forest, just to look at nature. Whereas the rush hour, yes, it creates a type of high octane energy, but it's not completely natural to us. So we have this conflict. So meditation, I would probably suggest, with all its benefits, it also indicates in a way, for a person who's in that type of contemplative state all the time, they are living on the soul level. They would say, the meditation, okay, so now the West is looking for some so-called, some healing, some balm, some form of dealing with a hectic, tense, and anxious life that the finance, money, rush hours, the drive for success, the competition demands of us. And in that sense, therefore, meditation became a very powerful force. But if you really go back to the original sources, you'll discover that it was really always the natural process. Yes, a newborn child is meditating in a certain way. Not that they sit down and they're in any position or they're thinking and concentrating, but their natural state is one where their natural being is expressing itself. So it's important to remember that meditation, healthy meditation, true meditation, is really taking you back to your natural being. And once you're there, it takes on a whole different meaning, because then you're becoming more soulful. That's what it comes down to become more soulful. To the point where you realize that's your natural self, like a fish in water. Once you feel like it's a fish in water, it's not an act. Okay, you know that over this weekend, I'm going to meditate. I'm not suggesting and trying to criticize. Listen, people are busy in the evenings, take a break in the middle of the day, or weekends. At least that's a good beginning. But the real goal is to be essentially a meditative and a contemplative and a soulful human being. It should be a state of being where you're in touch with that inner self, and your body and all your material activities are just vehicles, channels, containers to allow that soulfulness to express itself. That's the ultimate goal. So if you really get to the Kabbalah of meditation, what you're coming to discover is the natural, essential self. And it's very refreshing, because we essentially are living the opposite way. We think that our businesses, our work, the things we do, the things we produce are the real you, because that's where you're making your money from. That's how you survive. That's where you get your honor, your pride, your ego, respect. The truth is, the real you is really a very simple, innocent child, a soul, a breath. In the famous classic story, biblical story, when Elijah was looking for the essence of things. So first he heard a thunder, and he thought that was the essence of reality. That was the divine. Then came a strong wind, and he thought that was it. Then came a fire, a lightning, and he thought that was it. Until he realized the next step came what's called a very subtle, gentle voice. Barely audible. But it gets drowned out by the rush hours, by the loud noises, the turbulence, and all the distractions of life. You have that voice right inside you. It's your natural self. It's how you were shaped and formed in 9 months of pregnancy. And then upon birth is right there with you in our early formative years, until something changes that. In a healthy environment, that would be cultivated. But the fact of the matter is, we live in a very material world. And the body, instead of being seen as a vehicle, suddenly becomes an end in itself. And now this still, gentle voice, this subtlety, the innocence, that purity, that natural restlessness of the flame within you, the breath gets concealed, goes undercover. And we do everything possible to find it. One of the ways we seek it is through love. Love, intimacy. These experiences are all really looking and seeking for that lost rosebud, for that lost innocence, for that lost breath. So yes, we continue to breathe, but then we become defined by what the circumstances around us, instead of your real essence of who you truly are. So the Kabbalah of meditation would dictate and expect of us, and I say dictate, I mean that in a positive way, would say that the key thing is to get back to your natural self. We're not looking to superimpose something. Think of a garden. You plant seeds and you nurture it and you water it. You cultivate it, the flowers will grow. You'll need to weed it. But if you allow the weeds to grow and you allow other forces to take over and you don't protect it, what will happen? So the natural flowers will be overrun by the weeds, by rodents, by predators that will not allow it to grow properly. The same is in this world. The material world is a challenging world. I'm not even getting now to predators and abuse and hurt and criminal intent. The very fact that we live in a material world and that soul is concealed creates the illusion that the soul is in the back somewhere. It's a secondary thing. The truth is we should never forget about our soul. It's something that should be constantly aware, we should be constantly aware of, and it should be the driving force of your life. So that in a nutshell is the concept. But now how do we get there? Now we're talking to adults. How do we get there when we're already so much consumed by, and as I mentioned, inundated and overwhelmed by the world around us? We have responsibilities and expectations and demands. Many of them may be healthy, many of them may not be. Someone asks you, who are you? Very often people will respond by giving you their business card. But that's what you do, that's not who you are. Well, we've been doing it so long, we think what we do has become who we are. When it should be the other way around. Your inner identity, again, your soul, should define who you are. So the truth is, what I'm going to be sharing now is obviously for adults, for people who can listen to what I'm saying, to help us get back, to reclaim, to regain our birthright, the natural soul, the beating heart within you that should be your driving force. But my hope is that those of you that have children or will have children will help those children continue to maintain that connection so they don't lose it and then have to reclaim it. And that is by, in a sense, going through these meditations and these exercises that continuously reinforce the natural soul within every child. So for adults, it may be more difficult because we have to now go back and undo damage done, or distortions, or misconceptions, or prejudices and biases. But that is true in everything in life. You know, when you're innocent and a clean slate, it's easier to impress healthy habits. Once you've developed bad habits, it's harder to do so. So how do we do so? So let's break it into two parts, and I'll talk briefly about the third part, and that is our faculties divide into mind, cognitive faculties, we use our minds, and our emotional faculties. And they're very clearly distinct. The mind is contemplative, it's reflective, a healthy mind. It's objective. It allows us to look at something without yet thinking in terms of what is it in it for me. The emotions, exact opposite. They're impulsive, reflexive, and the emotions are all about my feelings for it. Am I attracted? Am I repelled? Am I loving it? Is it something not for me? When they work well together, the mind is like, think of it like a captain of a ship, and the emotions are the ship itself. They experience things. If you have a mind without a heart, it's like a computer. There's no experience. If you have a heart without a mind, it can be we can be misled, misguided, because the emotions, you can get seduced, and the things can seduce our emotions and manipulate it, and so on. You really want a perfect combination and blend of these two. The third dimension, which is the superconscious, and I've discussed this in previous programs, is not something I want to focus on, but it's important to mention because when we align our minds and our hearts and our emotions toward that deeply focused soul within ourselves, it allows the superconscious to naturally flow as well. But the superconscious always remains behind the scenes. That's why it's called superconscious. We're not conscious of it. So basically, healthy conscious living, healthy cognitive conditioning and emotional conditioning, and we'll also talk about behavioral conditioning, which means bringing it into action, that allows the superconscious to flow properly. Again, for young children, before they've been jaded in any distortions, that's all happening naturally without any effort. We want to go back to that mode, but we're going now as adults. So it's more deliberate, It's an effort. It's not just something we just like you talk to someone who's older and their breathing is difficult, or they're not using their entire lungs. They need to figure out ways to exercise, to clear out the toxins, to open up the channels. For a newborn child or for a young child, that may not be necessary. But we're trying to regain that purity and that innocence. Think of it like freshly fallen snow. After it's trampled on, it's no longer white and pure. But we want to reclaim and regain that. So meditation, in the Kabbalah of meditation, there's actually two types of meditations, two categories, I should say. One is cognitive, that's focusing with your mind on something. And the second is emotional meditation, which is more complicated because emotions don't use the mind, but the mind can lead the emotions to also be focused. What I'm saying is basically that if you leave things to emotions, as much as you're concentrating on something, if the phone rings or someone comes by or something attracts you, you can suddenly leave it all behind and just be drawn to whatever your emotions are drawn. You're hungry, you're thirsty. But in a healthy process, what you want to do is you have the mind create an oasis, a focused state, a mindfulness state where you're present and not being distracted, and then open the door up for your emotions to have similar focus. So your feelings are aligned with your mind toward this inner soul of who we are. Sometimes it's described of focusing on the unity, the integral unity that connects everything, which is essentially saying the same idea that the soul is a connector. So in the process of the Kabbalah of meditation, you find these two different categories, and the truth is they work together hand in hand. Maybe interesting for you to note that the concept of prayer actually is very much about emotional meditation, driven by contemplative meditation. So even though we think of prayer sometimes of saying thanks and gratitude, or opening our hearts to God and ask for what we need, or prayer in time of crisis, but it's much deeper than that. Prayer is equated, the Kabbalah teaches, the Kabbalists teach, with song and music. And as such, it's more than just reaching out. It's actually an emotional conditioning. It says, what is the service of the heart? Prayer. So the word prayer can be a misnomer, can be misunderstood. That's why prayer, really, the word for it in Hebrew is avoda, to serve, service, dedication, commitment, where you're taking all of yourself and focusing emotionally toward your calling, toward your soul's calling. So that's why you'll find there's the concept of hitbonenut, which is a contemplative meditation, pondering, contemplating, thinking, focusing with your mind. And once you create that environment, then you begin to pray. That's how the Talmud puts it, because then you can bring your emotions in. It's not easy to just get the emotions focused if your mind is not focused. If your mind is racing or distracted or being drawn here and there, your emotions are just not going to have that direction. Like I said, the captain of the ship. So with that said, let us actually do and discuss an actual meditation, a hitbonenut, as well as on a cognitive level, as well as on an emotional level. And then we'll connect it to song, because song has a natural ability, more than the words. I'm speaking right now. Even if it resonates, it's still something is not there, because words are words. If you really want to get into that meditative state, the Kabbalah insists you need to have song. So what I'm going to do now is go through a contemplative and emotional meditation, and then conclude with a song that captures this experience. And this is just one of many, but it's a good beginning if you've never done this before, or if you're a expert in this exercise. In this method. Expert may not be the right word, because the more you do it, the more you realize you're not an expert. But whether it's something you've never done before, something you've done you're very accustomed to, used to and accustomed to, this, I believe, will be something that is enlightening for all of us, including myself. So what I'm going to focus on is a morning, you can say it's a meditation, it's a prayer in the context that I said it, but it's not just words. It's not just an idea. And it focuses exactly on what we were discussing, your soul. So we say in the Hebrew, I'll first say it in the Hebrew, I'll translate and explain, and then go through the meditation and do it on two parts, the contemplative part, the cognitive part, and the emotional part. And the goal, as I said, is that will allow the superconscious to emerge. And that will be experienced through pure serenity, through calm, through a deeper calm that you don't usually experience in the hectic life that we live. So the prayer or the meditation is called Moda'ani, which literally means thank you, gratitude. So that alone, we know gratitude already is a powerful force when you say thank you. Recently, psychological studies show how gratitude is such a tremendous force that actually increases life expectancy, eliminates different levels of stress. So we begin Moda'ani, which is thank you. Thank you. And I'll say the Hebrew, Moda'ani lefanecha. I thank you, I submit to you, I acknowledge to you. And does it say to whom? Lefanecha, which can also mean to the inner you. The word pnim in Hebrew, fanecha. So Moda'ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, the living and eternal king. Interesting word here. King meaning an authority, something greater than ourselves. But not authority in a negative sense, but accepting, surrendering, dissolving into a presence that's higher than ourselves. And for returning my soul to me, that you have returned my soul to me, with much compassion and faith. I'm going to be focusing on the words returning my soul to me. So when we're asleep, well, obviously our soul is still working, just like our heart is beating, but everything slows down. The conscious faculties are not really functioning in a way that we're aware of. It's at the minimum. So what happens to that living soul, that vitality, that energy that we have once we wake up? So the soul, in a sense, recedes and goes back to its source. Think of a flame or sparks coming out of a hot coal, receding back into the coal. So the soul goes back to its natural place, and in the morning we're acknowledging that to basically say, thank you for returning my soul to me. Remember, the word neshama also means the word breath, because breath is an expression of the soul. It's the divine breath within you that is now re-emerging in a conscious way as you awake, and you're focusing on it. Something we do every morning. So here's the meditation. Close your eyes, take in a few breaths, focus with your mind. Let's start with our minds. The cognitive focus on the soul within you. You're not focusing on your functions. You're not focusing on your arms and legs and ears and eyes and taste, touch, and smell. In a way, you're almost closing down your senses. Imagine if you closed your ears, your eyes, your ears, your taste, touch, and smell. So what are you left with? A certain inner force. Being that breath is the very word for soul, so breathing helps you focus on that because you go within and realize there's a whole force within you. That subtle, silent voice, that quiet voice, quietude. The more you can create that space, and it doesn't necessarily have to take time, you're entering that space through your breath, through your soul. Once your mind focuses on that, then allow yourself to feel it, which would mean not focusing on what am I going to eat for breakfast or what am I going to do next, but allowing your emotions to feel that I am a soul, I'm unique, I'm indispensable. That's really what you're saying thank you for. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for making me unique, for making me indispensable. Which takes us to the next step, where you say, I have a mission that's unique to me. No one but I can accomplish what that mission is, because it's unique to your own soul. That's the focus, and that is the meditation. And it has to have a cognitive side to it and an emotional side to it. The emotional side is the commitment to it. That's not just an idea, oh, it's an interesting thing that I have to have a soul and it was returned to me. No, it's who you are. It's what drives you. It gives you purpose. It gives you a sense of urgency, a sense of direction and guidance. This can be 1 minute, it can be 2 minutes. But when you do it properly, what you go away with is, in the morning, before you're doing anything else, you've established your hub, your mission statement you've declared, which in turn will inform all the spokes and all the details of your life, instead of the other way around. Because now that soul is going to express itself through the vehicle of your body and your activities, whatever they may be, and whatever involvements or commitments or endeavors that you're involved in throughout that day are all informed by this central hub, the breath of your soul. Now, to take this a step further, let's take it a step further into something that we can all really appreciate and really get us into that mindset and heart set, which again will allow the superconscious to emerge. So we all know that before we became aware of our lives, we spent 9 months in our mother's womb. And then you were born. None of us remember our birth. We don't remember our early formative years. You start having snapshots and little glimpses, some from 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. But even then, it's not like a flowing narrative. It's fragmented pieces. So the meditation, let's go back to the Moda Ani, to take it to a more expanded form, is let's talk about this soul as it was in our early formative years. So close your eyes and imagine the sound of a heartbeat. And if you can find a heartbeat somewhere that you're out to play, even better. A sound of a heartbeat. Bum, 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 bum. Contraction, expansion. A healthy heart. And that's what's surrounding you. Nothing else. You know the feeling sometimes you go underwater and you just feel everything is quieted down? You just feel yourself in a different way? Well, even more so with this heartbeat. This is the heartbeat of your mother. 9 months, 24/7, that's all you heard. That was the rush, that sound, the heartbeat, and sometimes it sounds a little like water as well in the background. The soothing sound of a heartbeat, with like a rushing water, but not loud, very, very gentle. Koil de Mamadaka, that subtle, quiet voice within you. That's what you heard. You were being fed, nurtured, nourished, not through any of your own efforts. And this is what surrounds you. Once you get into that place, which should lead you not just to a cognitive experience of it, but an emotional experience of it. Because imagine, when you feel that way, there's a certain soothing element. It's like being embraced. You're completely surrounded, submerged in the embryonic fluids, protected, nurtured. The thing that we all crave so much, unconditional love. And now we continue. And then you hear this gentle voice speaking to you. This is your mother speaking to you. I've waited for you so long. I can't wait to meet you in person. I will do everything possible to help you live up to your calling, to your purpose. I have made a room ready for you, a beautiful new crib with white, pure, clean sheets and a beautiful warm blanket. I will wrap you in it. I will cuddle you. I will nurture you. I will embrace you unconditionally. And anything that comes your way, I'm here to protect you. And the heartbeat all along in the background. Pum, 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 pum. What this will elicit, if done properly, is strong emotions and feelings. Firstly, the resonance of a truth that we all have heard and wanted to hear. For some of us, it may bring tears of joy, of connecting to something that we don't remember consciously, but we feel something that we experienced in our early childhood. For others, it may be tears of pain. not having heard that message, not having had a mother or father that spoke that way, or even worse, that actually invalidated us in some fashion. The point is, whoever you are, this idea of spending 9 months in that environment, with that background, with that soothing sound of a heartbeat, which, as I said before, mirrors the breath of the soul, the contraction and expansion of the heart, the exhaling and inhaling of the breath, the pulsating dual nature of the soul, the tension and resolution, all surrounding you, and hearing these beautiful, beautiful words. And then we're born. We come out of our mother's womb, we emerge. So in the perfect scenario, even if it may not exist perfectly, your mother, your parents would continue to reinforce this message in the way they protect you, in the way they take care of you. And that's what shaped you. By the time you become conscious, all that was in place. And if it wasn't in place, you can imagine what kind of lack that is. There's no person on earth that doesn't deserve that, hopefully received it, and if not, we wants it by all means, and we will look for it one way or another. We may not call it reclaiming our soul's natural environment within that breath, within that womb, within that heartbeat, but that's what we're looking for. That lies at the heart of everything that drives us, that matters. I'm not talking about the means of things. Ultimately, what we want. We want love. We want to be embraced. We want that unconditional acceptance. We want to know we matter. So after you open your eyes, after thinking about and feeling that state, think and feel, what have you now experienced? And contrast it. It'd be a good idea, take a piece of paper, write down. What did I feel like before? What do I feel like now? What is my day going to be like? How does that compare to what I just experienced? The goal is not to escape your life. The goal is to take that calm, that harmony, that nurturing element, and draw from it into the vehicle of your life, your body, and all your physical needs and physical experiences. That's the ultimate goal. And do this every morning. And I assure you, this will create tremendous change in your life. You don't have to disrupt your whole life. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to change big schedules. It's just a matter of complete focus. You'll begin to crave that morning exercise because it's the place that you will begin, and that will be the beginning of your daily journey. In the evening, before you go to sleep, just, if I may, another meditation that fits with that is a similar statement that I entrust in your hands my spirit, my soul. So if you think of the two bookends of your life, when you wake up, you go to sleep. You go to sleep with that calm, not with a newspaper, not with the television on, not with any other distractions. Push all that aside. Just go back to the soul where you began and end the day where you began the day. So those bookends, that will punctuate your life. Your sleep will be more calm, and that in turn will infuse every aspect of your life with that deeper inner harmony and serenity. To drive the point home, if I may, I will conclude with a song. It's a song I heard from my mentor, my teacher, my soul teacher. Besides being a scholar and a sage and a man of empathy and a man of God, also a tremendous Kabbalist, came from a family of Kabbalists. We call him the Rebbe. A loving word means the teacher, the mentor, the soul master. Many different ways to translate it. So it's a song he taught on a holiday night in the year 1958. And the song is called Shamil. Shamil was the name of a band leader, not a music band leader. A band leader, he was a bohemian, a free spirit, lived in the Caucasian mountains. But he was him and his group were disruptive, shall we say. And the town people always felt that they were like nuisance, to put it mildly. And they found different ways to try to, but they couldn't subdue them because they lived in the mountains. They had the high ground, so they couldn't attack them because they were always, even though they were a smaller group, but they had that superiority living up in the mountains. So one day they came up with a ruse to get Shamil to come down and let's negotiate. Let's find some peace. Well, once he came down from the mountain and sat with them, they had him arrested. They put him into a labor camp. The exact antithesis to that free spirit mountain man that he was. At this camp, one chassid heard him hum this song, and brought it back, and this became the song called Shamil. It's a song of 3 sections. I would say it's more of a chant that is very much aligned to everything we've been talking about. Three sections, 3 stanzas, song without words. And the first one is the nostalgia as Shamil is remembering the time when he was like soaring like a bird, spreading his wings without any confines, without any limitations and constraints. The second part of the song is melancholy of now being chained in a labor camp and not being able to fly like an eagle. And the third part of the song is the hope and the optimism that one day he will fly again. And when the Rebbe taught this song, he said these 3 sections of the song, or the chant, represent each one of our lives. The soul begins unfettered, unbound by the limitations of the body and its physical needs, eating, drinking, sleeping, tired, fatigue, health issues, and so on. But then the soul comes into a body which can be compared to a labor camp. We have to work for a living. We have to contend with all kinds of adversity, and sometimes worse, to protect ourselves. So it has a certain element of melancholy. But then there's the final stanza that says, no, ultimately the hope and optimism that we will soar again, and this time body and soul. So it's a perfect song or chant that goes together with the meditations we've been reviewing. So here's Shamil. That's the nostalgia. The melancholy. Narayanai, Ay Narayanai, Ay Naray, Oy Naru, the hope. Diriyanai, Ay, Ay, Shamiel, may you be blessed with the strength and courage to focus, access that soul, your greatest resource within you, both contemplatively, cognitively, emotionally, and bring it into behavior, into acts of kindness, of love, of generosity, of virtue. The SPA, the spiritual SPA, study, prayer, action, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral conditioning. And that will draw forth from the more superconscious, more transcendent dimensions of the soul, which in turn will lift and carry you in all your details to a completely different realm with broader and wider horizons, a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of awareness. This has been Simon Jacobson. I want to thank you so much. Kabbalah of Meditation. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your comments. And above all, please share. If this was something meaningful to you, please share. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to meaningfullife.com where you can find this and many more resources that help nurture, help actualize, as I said, the greatest resource that you have, and that is your inner soul, your inner breath, that subtle and gentle but most powerful voice, louder than all thunder, winds and fire and lightning. Be well and be blessed. Thank you so much.